So good to see you, Hidden Nation. Welcome into the studio. You got Josh Carey right here. It's your Hidden Entrepreneur. Now, Hidden Nation, I don't use the term entrepreneur lightly, especially for this very episode. I know who you are. I know what you're after. And I promise you, this is the entrepreneurial episode for you. Why? Get this. We are joined by Mitch Lieberman, who is a serial entrepreneur and digital marketing pioneer. And as you're going to see, we are not using hyperbole with that word pioneer. He's been doing e-commerce long before it was the cool thing to do. Mitch, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me. Thanks for those kind words.
Absolutely. I want to get some points of interest out here right off the gate. In 1997, you emerged as a trailblazer in online retail. Now, I want the audience to really connect those dots. 1997, online retail. We're going to dig into that in just a minute.
Sure.
But you became one of the earliest pioneers in the furniture industry, selling on eBay back in the day under the seller name Furniture, which set the stage for what become your remarkable entrepreneurial journey. Furthermore, you earned the prestigious title of the 35th fastest growing company in the United States by Inc. 500 in 2007. Mitch, through your company, One Way Furniture, which you established back in the day. Now you're running the successful digital marketing agency, Long Island Digital, which we're going to dig deep into also. How did you even become an e-commerce pioneer way before the cool kids were doing it?
Yeah, sometimes in life you plan for exactly what you want to do, and that's what people go to college for, and that's what, people study medicine or whatever, legal. In my particular case, I went to college with the understanding that I was going to do something in business, but I didn't quite know what it was, to be quite honest. I wasn't on the 4-year plan. I took a couple of extra years. I was having a good time. I grew up in the boroughs. I grew up in Queens, and I majored actually in psychology. I took some industrial psychology classes that were more focused on business. But, earlier on, I could tell you that the world was a lot different. If I'm talking to some of the millennials or younger people today, they don't quite understand what it's like to live in a world where you don't have access to information at your fingertips. And that's where we were. If you had a question that you couldn't answer, you looked to an encyclopedia, you asked somebody, but you didn't you accepted the fact that you weren't going to get the answer. Today, that's not the case. But a friend of mine actually called me up and they needed some help at a furniture store. And I said, look, I have no experience in this industry, but I was looking for part-time work. And she told me, you'll be wonderful. I know your personality. You're great. So I went to go work at a furniture store. I started to learn the industry. And just my natural curiosity is, how do we make things better? How do we evolve something? And there would be periods where 2 hours would go by. There'd be no customers. And then 3 people come in and you're sitting there trying to figure out, which particular customer do I speak to? Because a lot of it was commission based. Then I started to come up with the idea, why don't I try to start selling things on my own? I was selling things for the store. So I opened up an eBay account and it said, pick a seller name. I said, all right, furniture, that's what I'm doing right now. And it was available. They were a startup company.
That's
eBay.
right.
I started, I wasn't selling furniture initially. I was selling these Heart of the Ocean from the movie Titanic necklaces. I was selling some cosmetic jewelry, and I was, little odds and ends that I started to pick up, and I found a wholesaler. But I also found out how to get myself to the top position on eBay. Back then, it was really simple. You just paid more than the other people. But there was a mathematics equation to that. How many do I need to sell based upon how much I'm spending to feature, and how do I get to the top and make it successful. Once that little proof of concept was done and I started to sell and it was very successful, I was moving them quickly. I said, well, I don't need to sell a $14 product. I need a higher ticket item. Why not furniture? I'm right here in the industry. So I woke up the next morning and I was, thinking about this all night. And I walked up to the owner of the company and I said, listen, this was my pitch. How would you like to make money while you sleep? And she said, well, who wouldn't? I said, well, here's the deal. I pulled out of my pocket two crisp $100 bills, put them on the table. I said, put down a matching sum and we're partners and I'm going to show you how this is done. She put it down and that began the journey into selling on eBay, selling online. And so I did that for about 3 years. The auctions were extremely successful. Back then, you can sell to the second bidder, the third bidder, the fourth bidder. So if somebody didn't win the auction, but they were still profitable in the sale, I'd email them. We'd have a template and we'd say, we have more available. Why don't you come and, send the money through PayPal and we'll deliver it. So it was off to a great start. It was really rolling. And the owner of the company was looking to get out. She was a lot older than I was. She wanted to sell her buildings. So in 2000, I was faced with that moment that I think any entrepreneur that you deal with in the show and life, you will have a moment in life where the bundle of fear, the bundle of excitement, all wraps into one moment, and you have to make a decision. What am I going to do? And my decision was, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to give it a shot. I have no experience. I have no business plan. I have no history other than what I've just learned. I gave it a shot. I took a packer with me, somebody who can pack the boxes, and he was wonderful. Just a real sharp guy from Ecuador, but very out of the box thinking. He knew how to make his own box from flat boxes. And I took a customer service person and we went out to Long Island and we opened up a warehouse where we began to pick and pack. And very quickly, things just started to evolve from the packing in-house. I'll fast roll a little bit forward because I just want to get to the point where about 3 years in, we've already hit the marks of 1 million, 3 million, 4 million, and a lamp was out of stock. And so I called up the manufacturer and I said, look, I thought I had one in stock. I don't. You're in Los Angeles. Our customer's in San Francisco. Would you mind shipping it to them? And she said, sure, I'll get it out there. It'll be there in 2 days. I said, thank you so much. I hung up the phone and a light bulb just went off. And I said, what am I doing with 10,000 square feet in Long Island? They have 300,000 square feet. I have manufacturers with millions and millions of square feet. And so again, I couldn't sleep for the next few nights. The decision was made within a few days. My warehouse was gone. And so over the next year, I eliminated the warehouse. I met with my key vendors and I said, look, we're changing our model. I need you to understand what we're doing. Are you in or are you out? And we had, 5 key vendors. 4 out of the 5 key vendors were on board. And so I changed my model at that point to become really all about digital. This now was not going to be a pick and pack operation. It was going to be the order comes in, it now gets processed, it goes to the manufacturer. You want to call it direct ship, you want to call it drop ship. So we were kind of the first, I don't want to say the first, we were one of the first people in that industry to kind of do it that way, where we owned the product the minute it left. And this continued for years. We hit the Inc. 500. We reached marks that, again, a lot of hard work, a lot of wonderful people around me. There's no question. I mean, we were very lucky in that we hired some real sharp people that there was not a lot of people in the industry with experience because it was a new industry. But I hired more on character than I did on a person's experience, and knowing that we can teach them, we can mold them, and that's what we were able to do. And very quickly it became, from 0 to 4 million to 10 million. We were a 20+ million dollar operation within about 5 years.
So much to dig into there. What I'm hearing is a lot of this you had no working knowledge of, so you had to just sort of learn in real time on the fly, right?
Correct.
And,
Correct.
and then also you said that, I love how you put it, that you had that decision to be made where any entrepreneur on a somewhat regular basis should be feeling that the fear blended perfectly with the exhilaration. And now it's on you, right? The
Yeah.
spotlight is there. What are you going to do? And you made the decision and said, I'm going for it. But I'm sure you weren't in the clear then. Can you point out one of those days or nights that still sticks with you where the fear was just overwhelming and you weren't sure what was going to be next?
Well, I was about to get married to my wife Tara, and I explained the idea, and I said, "Listen, the money that we have from the wedding, remember that money that's sitting there in that account? The banks will not give me a loan." I tried. I walked into the banks, and they kind of laughed me off with, "Where are your assets?" I said, "Assets. I got an idea." you know, so that didn't work. So I had to take our savings and utilize it for the beginning, which I knew would quickly turn because I had to buy the inventory for the order for the back orders and then, deliver the back orders, charge the back orders, and then keep that process moving. So my wife was wonderfully supportive of the idea. But again, I remember waking up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. I was so nervous. I had so much to do. I had list of things that, back then it was all on paper. Today we use the calendar and send ourselves millions of notes a day of incredibly a lot of things that need to be done, but they're scheduled differently. But back then, that moment that I'm talking about is when you feel the fear and you just do it anyway. And that's what it takes. It really takes that understanding. Look, I'm walking blind into this industry. I know it's going to work, and I have a lot of work to do, and I have a lot of understanding to do, but I'm going to get there. And so I just felt that we were ahead of the industry, and we had that leap start,
Mm-hmm.
and that leap start was going to be very useful. I didn't think that leap start would last forever, but it would be enough to get us off the ground quicker than anybody else.
So
And
tell me about that, because I recognize that too, that you had a somewhat first to market advantage here early on in the days of the internet first coming to fruition. But you, along with everybody else, had to figure it out. But then slowly but surely, competition comes. So what was that turning point? What happened?
so
How'd you evolve from there?
So I remember I was at a furniture market where I would go to twice a year, and the manufacturers would talk to me, and they were always so hyped. Mitch, you're doing great. We're doing a lot of business together, and we'd go out to dinners. And then I remember one of the shows where the word Wayfair came into play. And so I heard of this guy and I met this guy and I knew this guy from the industry over there. And he started a company called Wayfair. And at that moment, for a blink of an eye, they were behind us in revenue. And then a blink of an eye later, they just accelerated into what they are today, a multi-billion-dollar company. I give them a lot of credit. Look, they went in with programmers. They went in with deep investments from, I guess, hedge funds and venture capital. And still to this day, I don't know if that company's turning a profit, but Wall Street backs them, and that's what we knew eventually we would be up against.
So what'd you
So,
do?
well, my goal at that point was to simply grow the company without looking too much in front of us and looking too much behind us. Look, I knew at some point this wasn't going to be the last thing I do. I knew at some point this was going to be a transitional piece in my life, and they were going to catch us. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. I believed we were ahead. I believed that we had an advantage, but I also believe that you can't compete with Wall Street when people are going in, losing money every quarter, and their stock keeps going up. And that's where we were faced. We had a big advantage in our jump start.
So you, in with what you were doing, 25 million in 5 years. Um, how, because I know we're segueing to you're a very successful player in the digital marketing space now. Were there pieces that you were learning, honing, and crafting then in the furniture deal?
Absolutely. So everything I've ever done in my company, I've always believed, and I still believe, you need to do it yourself before you can have others do it. With one exception, I'm not a programmer. I sat with my programmer who built our back end system, and that I knew I wasn't. Anything that I could do, I needed to do first before I turned it over. So, yes, I was very well versed in digital marketing. Not that I had a background, but I was young enough and I started to learn it. And I was very inquisitive and very effective when I really wanted to learn something and I really wanted to dig into it. I would look at other websites and say, why are they positioned for this keyword, 20 spots ahead of us? And I would start to look at source codes of websites, which most people don't look at. When you right click and you see a lot of coding and HTML, that interests me. And I said,
Mm.
what's different about this site than our site? Is it the content? Is it the coding? Is it the imagery? Is it, the way the site's laid out? So I learned a lot about that. And I learned a lot about paid search, and I managed it myself for the first few years in business. And eventually I kept turning over the things that I learned over to professional teams so that I can now be free to take on new responsibilities. And that was the plan. Keep thinking about the next important hire that I needed. Again, no business plan whatsoever.
Well,
But what do I need next? I got the bookkeeper, I got the customer service, I got the operations manager, I had a customer service team of 8 people. I had a vice president of merchandising. I had logistics. So it was always, what do I need next? And there was a staff of 25 people running this company. But yes, to answer the question, I learned all of these things, and people were consulting with me back then. I've gotten, I don't want to give away companies, but I got some big companies that would come to me and say, look, can you help us? We're having some issues here with our digital footprint. We know you know this space.
mm.
And absolutely, I love making friends. I love hearing people's issues. I love solving problems. And so I did get involved in some consulting roles even back then while I was doing the furniture.
So it sounds like you've learned everything that you're up to on the job. You had no formal training in this, and you
Correct.
surrounded yourself. The theme I keep hearing is that you surrounded yourself with the right people as you realized that's what I need next. Let me go find the right person. How did you go out? Was it a traditional job search, or were you just putting feelers out, looking to attract the right person? How did it happen?
Some people were referred by friends. Some people I would just place an ad out there and I would interview, and we went on, we took a lot of interviews. And, I also believe in, hire the right person, hire the right character, but you have to fire very quickly. And I'm not I tend to believe I'm a kind-hearted person. However, not every position is for every person. So it's also important to know when you don't have a fit, you got to make a move quickly. You
And it's
can't
not
string
personal.
along people. Correct, correct.
That's what
But
I
but
just
even in
got from
those
that. Yeah.
cases,
Yeah.
right? Even in those cases, I would have talks with people. I would try to get them another position in another company. I would make some calls for them. I always, no matter who it was, I always also believe in treating people the way you want to be treated. And we had like a family environment. It was really a wonderful company, and just a lot of fun. It really wasn't a job for me. It was just a hobby that became so much fun, and it was such a great ride, and so many speeches on subjects that I love. So it never felt like a job. It never felt like I was working at all.
The revenue you've achieved, even then, when it first became evident that that's where it's heading, and certainly when the bank account reflects it, what is that like? Could you have imagined what need, who do you need to become in order to work with that?
Very uncomfortable for me, to be honest with you. I didn't grow up with money. My dad was a provider. He provided what we needed. I can't say I was, poor or anything, but we had what we needed, but nothing much more. I mean, so when I was in that position where the money was flowing and, for the first time I was able to afford things that I never thought I would, it felt uncomfortable. It really did. Uh, so I had to get used to that. And look, I've donated to some charities. I gave back. I always believe in just keeping yourself grounded, being a humble human being. But I was very grateful. I got to be honest. I was just extremely grateful knowing that my success, as hard as I worked, as hard as I tried, look, I got to believe in a higher power, we'll call it. I don't want to, we'll just call the higher power in the universe, right? That there's more to it. Sometimes your best efforts of what you want to do, all of a sudden something happens, something turns, and you're doing something else, and you're like, wow. So I was just grateful. I was thankful. I thanked all the people around me for their contributions. And yeah, we had a few good meals, right, that I didn't have growing up at nice steakhouses, but I did not use the money like go out and buy fancy cars, and that's not who I am as an individual.
So now we are running Long Island Digital, a very successful agency with social media marketing, SEO, websites. What was the impetus in your world to launch that? What happened?
Well, this was the easiest transition for me that could ever happen. And that's because I dealt with a lot of agencies when I was turning over my skill set to somebody else. And I had to hire and fire so many agencies over the course of the years, and they were not operating the way I wanted to see things done. So and when I say the way I wanted to see things done, I wanted transparency, I
Hmm.
wanted results, I wanted to understand what was going on, and more importantly, I didn't just want a salesperson to give me a sales pitch and then to hand me off to somebody else who has no idea of what the salesperson said to me. So I saw a lot of, again, going back to how I got into the furniture industry, is I found inefficiencies in the world. I saw a lot of inefficiencies in this digital marketing world. Paid search is critical to a business today. SEO, where you land on keywords for your website is critical. And having a mobile friendly website that really gives the vision of your business is so important, because people don't know if you're a small business or a multi-million dollar business when you're online, if they've never heard of you before. Your website is really the basis for that. And the traffic that you generate is just so important to your livelihood. So for me, the transition was simple in the fact that I knew I wanted to give the customer a better quality experience. I knew what they needed because I sat on the other side of the desk. I understand what they're thinking. I understand what their goals are. And I just love meeting these business people because they're so aligned with what I believe in. They're that same person that had that moment of, usually, and some businesses obviously are handed down to the kids and grandkids, but a lot of the businesses we deal with where the person also had that moment of fear, excitement, where they founded the business and they had to make those decisions. So I'm really able to relate to those people. And the reason it's Long Island Digital is, I'm out in Long Island. I live in Long Island, and I truly believe in business the old fashioned way. sit down with somebody, meet with them, handshake, get to understand what they're doing, get to understand where their pain points are at, and give them an honest assessment. If I can't help you because your expectations are unrealistic, I'm gonna tell you flat out. But for most people, here's the problem. They don't quite understand what they need, but they know they need something. They understand that they have a business that's been doing this type of business a certain way for many years. They know other people are online. So either they put a blind over their face and pretend it doesn't exist, or they go out there and they embrace the world and start learning it. Now, the beauty of it is they don't have to learn it. I hired an electrician to do some work in my basement, right? I have no idea what he did behind the wall. I just know at the end of the day, the lights came back on and I was thrilled. So, really, what we tell everybody is look, you have to be able to understand, you have to trust us in the fact that we live this experience for ourselves. I'm not some salesperson that's selling you something that I didn't do myself. So if you trust us and you believe in us, we're going to get the results and we're going to give you a fair assessment for what the timetable is going to be. Paid search is quick. We can get somebody up there tomorrow ranking for keywords because we pay for it. And there's a process. There's still other things involved like quality scores and a lot of other things where the links are pointed to and how you position the campaigns. But search engine optimization takes a little while to really get going. And then it takes a while to really start cranking in. But when done effectively, the results are truly amazing. They're longer lasting. So there's different elements to what people need online. And one of them, I can tell you, reputation management, critical today because people are not willing to give you a good review on good service, typically, unless you ask for it. And you really got to ask for it. The people that have a bad experience are so quick to jump and leave a negative review that people really need to manage those social profiles. They need to manage their Facebook. They need to manage their Google profile page that links back to their website. But for a company that doesn't know where to go or how to get started, that's what we do. We say, look, here's what we want you to do based upon what we understand your goals are. Let's start over here. We're going to refresh the website. We're going to give you a better look. We're going to make your logo look better. We're going to make sure your website is positioned so that the search engines could pick you up correctly. And then we're going to look at the marketing pieces that attach and we'll give you the revenue. But I don't want to say nobody, but that can be helped. But there's literally that I've seen most companies, everybody can benefit from some form of digital marketing because I know when I'm looking for something, the first thing I do is go to Google and I search for it. If it's not Amazon, I'm going to Google and I'm searching and I'm learning and I'm seeing what companies come out. So that's the way people shop today. And that's the wave of the future. It's just continuing to evolve.
Mitch Lieberman, there is so much to love about you. One of the things I love is that, like you said, you clearly come with the history. You've walked the walk. You've lived it for decades, and you can't put a price on that. And I know that that's what's attractive about you to your clients. This has been extraordinary. LongIslandDigital.com for the listener who wants more insight. Hidden Nation, I hope you see what I see, right? This is a no-brainer. Go to LongIslandDigital.com now. Mitch, any final thoughts?
I just want to say that, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And if there are people out there, if you're Long Island, if you're New York, if you're outside Long Island, it really doesn't matter. Just understand that typically what you try to do in house, you can't get the same benefit as what we do. And the reason for that is we don't hire people that manage 8 things. We have people that are specialists in paid search, specialists in SEO, specialists in WordPress and Shopify, specialists in Google profiles. And what we do is each specialist manages that particular area only. So no matter who you hire out there, they would need to know a vast, huge amount of different pieces of digital marketing to be able to succeed. But more importantly, look, sometimes we do not-for-profits, sometimes we do it at pro bono work, like we've done a lot of that. We truly love the industry, we love the business, we love helping people, and we love talking to people. And if you just need you want to run some ideas or you have some questions, we're always open to a conversation. We just love business and we love entrepreneurs, and that's why we love this show. This is such a great thing you're doing in the entrepreneur world.
I feel the same. Certainly, Mitch. I feel the same about you. I hope we can have you back. Really, there's a ton more to speak of. You're welcome anytime, Mitch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate it.
And there you go, Hidden Nation. Thank you so much for tuning in, investing your time. Hopefully you got a little or even more out of this. I feel inspired, ready to go, and I'm sure you do too. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to do this again before too long. Until we meet again, Hidden Nation, take care. Be well.